Can you hear when it says that?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys. So we are live with Eugina. I'm so excited. So tonight is a really juicy topic. So before we start, to those of you who finished class with me just now, a huge well done because it was a little bit of a burner. And now we're on to another type. I shouldn't say burner. That's like not really a good way to introduce this one, but we're going to talk about sex. So we have Eugina here and we're diving into a few juicy bits, juicy bits. I am excited. Like I have already like loads of questions. So hopefully we won't go on too long. But if we do, I'm sure it's going to be well worth your time. So Eugenia, welcome. How are you?
Hi, and thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm doing really good.
Very good. So where in the world are you now?
I'm in Bali.
Right. So time wise, it's what like 10? Is it
No, it's
10?
like three, half past 3 in the morning. Yeah, we like 7 hours difference with
Oh
UK.
my gosh! And you're oh my god, Eugenia, I didn't know.
It's great.
Oh,
It's
thank
great.
you so much. Oh, you're lovely. Okay, I did not know. Oh my God, I'd be passed out. You're lovely. Okay, fantastic. So very early in the morning. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Well, my name is Eugina O Liberty, and I'm an international pleasure and intimacy coach. I typically help women to develop self love so they can create juicy and passionate relationships. I specialize in conscious sexuality and resolving an early childhood trauma so that we can live in peace with ourselves and create healthy relationships.
Samantha, I'll take notes because this is a topic that like I really feel like um so my platform is like health, fitness, well-being kind of thing. But I mean, in well-being and wellness, sex is a huge thing, and we don't talk about it. I feel like
Mm,
if you're not sexually satisfied, it just frigs everything up. Like if you haven't had a good orgasm in a long time, it's just like you kind of walk around feeling like, you know.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
true, and we don't talk about it. So I want to start talking about sex and bringing people on who are experts in the area and who this is what they
Mm,
do. All right. So you spoke about self-love. I want to tap into that a little bit because I talk about it a little bit.
mhm.
What is self-love to you? What is that? What does it mean? What does it look like for a woman who is practicing self-love, as in this is how she lives? What does her life look like?
That's a great question because,
Thank
like,
you.
everyone talks about self-love, but it's like, for example, I didn't even know the concept of self-love.
Mm,
No, and in my opinion, self-love is honoring my desires and my boundaries, like being
mm,
able to communicate what I want when I want it and when I don't want something, and being able to express that to people around us, being express that to people, like to our lovers, partners, spouse, our family, and even kids. Because what happens very often, we are so quick to serve everybody else and put ourselves last. It's like you
yeah.
like as a woman, our conditioning very often is you have to look after your husband, you have to look after your kids, you have to go to work, you have to look after your house, you have to wash the cat, make food. It's like everything's on you. And then when you just like have an hour to yourself, let's say to a fitness class or to see your friends, so many women are left feeling guilty. Oh, but I'm having some time for myself. Maybe I'm not supposed to do this. It's like, and we start sacrificing until we have nothing else to give, until we don't have any more energy within us. And there's like emotional burnouts, there's high anxiety, stress levels. Over the sudden, your relationships don't function as well anymore because you feel alone in that. Like the husband doesn't work or the spouse like doesn't help you much at home, and we feel isolated. And like isolation is one of the worst things, that like feeling lonely is one of the worst things that can happen, especially being in a relationship. So yeah, self-love in my opinion is like ability to communicate your needs, wants, and desires as they occur.
One of the best explanations that I've heard. Really good. So, for a woman, this is something that I've spoken about in a few interviews that I've done over the last couple of weeks. But yours is one of the best ones. I mean, it is about it does entail looking at boundaries, right? What are my boundaries, and what feels good to me now, and going with how do I give myself what I want and what I need. But for a woman who is so accustomed to, and I never understood this, whole fill your cup first, put your oxygen mask on. I never understood that. Like, how do I fill my own cup first? Until like I became a mom, and you have everything to do until you have got nothing left. Like, you've got nothing emotionally, nothing physically. You're just done. Like, I was just done, and I was like, all right, I understand it now. I've got to slow down. If I'm tired, I've got to rest. If I don't want to go out, I have to say no. If I've made a commitment, but I'm no longer able to fill it, it's okay to rearrange. Unlearning the behaviors of constantly putting others before myself in any way. So, and that even meant like having to let go of certain relationships, and being okay with not being okay with that for a time, and that whole grieving process around you're letting go of relationships that might have been very near and dear to you, but it's also quite freeing in a sense, right? But how do you advise a woman who is so accustomed to not practicing self-love and putting herself last, and so far down the list, by the time she comes to herself, there's nothing left. Like, she literally doesn't know who she is anymore, what she stands for, what she likes, what lights her up. What do you do with a woman like that? How do you help her?
Well, the first thing is I actually started working just now with somebody like that. And this is a woman in a very dysfunctional relationship with a partner narcissist, but like heavy narcissist, that she feels manipulated, not appreciated, not seen, and that she always rejected, and that she basically serves her partner all the time.
Can you explain what a narcissist is? Because I didn't get that term for a long time, and it's being thrown around a lot. Like, ooh, narcissist. It's one of those words now that's being flung around. What's a narcissist? What does it look? What do they look like in a relationship?
Narcissistic, like we all have narcissistic traits, some more than others. It's like basically the person that is self-absorbed and like unhealthy, like the extreme narcissists, they are very manipulative in terms of like the in a relationship. So for example, narcissistic relationship would look like they give you just enough and always wanting, like, and always you left wanting more. It's like, but why? So they're very charming personalities, but in the same time they like give you like crumbs of what you want and then pull back. It's like push and pull, kind of things.
Hard. Yeah, that's a hard kind of relationship to be in.
Like super hard relationship. But then there is everything's fine, but there is like an emotional abuse that comes with it. Because what comes, it's like they would put seeds in your mind that you're not good enough. It's like that they would like criticize you, like maybe not straight directly to your face, but it's like, oh, you're wearing this, no, maybe that's not like so good on you. Oh, you have this kind of hair, I preferred your other hairstyle, and it's like, and that would be like a slight,
Digging. Yeah.
yeah, like a slight doubt in yourself where you start as like, oh, maybe I'm not good looking enough, or maybe I'm not, this enough. But that's a slight subtle ways. But there's like grades of that, where people, actually, I worked with women who feel extremely manipulated and actually start doubting their sanity, what is real and what isn't real.
Oh gosh, that's quite severe.
It's very severe. I have worked with a woman who lost her, like she has a feeling like inside, she used to have a feeling inside that this relationship isn't working, but then her partner, narcissistic partner, would be manipulating her into that she's always wrong, she's always like not good enough, that she will never gonna find a better relationship than that.
Hmm.
You know, where
Hmm.
actually she's been like, if I seriously,
Hmm.
I work with some women, it's like their eyes so black because there is like constant battle happens inside. Constantly, you know, they're on battlefield trying to prove themselves. It's like, no, but look at me, but I'm trying so hard, but I'm good enough. You know, it's like, just acknowledge me. It's like, so one side is codependency and another side is narcissism, where like one person is like always a victim and trying to show us like,
Please, yeah.
oh yeah, please, but I'm good, and it's like, why are you so bad to me, and look at me, you know, it's like I'm trying, you know, to be great, can you acknowledge me? And when this position is very disempowering in those dynamics, but it's still very manipulative also, because like I grew up in a family where my father was very narcissistic and my mother was codependent, and like essentially both of those dynamics are run by shame.
Mm.
You know, so it's like one is self-absorbed, another one is given without, you know, having any limits, you know, or having the strength to say no, and it's like trying to prove that they're a good person. So it's
Mm.
like yeah, it's and
So,
and yeah, so just to say this, and most like people who suffering in these dynamics is the children, actually, because they don't have, you know, if the children are exposed to these dynamics, that they don't have they have an emotionally unavailable one figure and another one, because they absorbed in their, you know, it's like dynamics of like being emotionally unavailable and being a victim.
mm. Deep explanation of a narcissism. Okay, so we're gonna touch back on that because there's some things around shame and trauma that we will talk about. But so self-love to a woman,
Mm-hmm.
what does she look like? How do you help her? We spoke about how you what it looks like. No, we
Right.
didn't. We spoke about what it is, but we didn't talk about what it looks like for her. My mind
Sure.
just went off. I'm thinking, oh my god, I was like, there's a lot to talk about in that, but we'll come
Oh
back.
my God, there's so much,
There's a
so
lot.
much,
Yeah.
exactly.
There's a lot. So how do you help that woman who potentially may have a narcissistic husband or partner?
Mm-hmm.
I know some women now who are like that, don't
Mm,
know who they are, what they want, what they need. What's the
mm.
first step?
Right. The first step is to recognize that what you feel and what you think is valid.
Okay. So you don't feel like
Be-
you're crazy.
Absolutely, because like most of the time, those you know, women, they feel that they're crazy because uh, they've been told by their partner, somebody who they supposed to be trusting, that everything that they feel and they think is not valid or not like valuable, you know, and then find that it's like, oh, actually, my when my intuition tells me something, it's not crazy, it's
It's
actually
true.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like we women, we were blessed with our intuition, and you know, our intuition most of the time is very strong. And I can tell you right now that if your intuition tells you that something is off, something is not right, most likely something is not right. You know, whether that's relationships or situations, if you have that like a little doubt of like sincerity or like how um
I get what you're saying.
You
Yeah,
know,
it's
like
like that
there,
little,
there's, yeah.
that's hard, you know, because that's a tricky thing to deal with if you are in a relationship where it's sort of like, I don't want to use this word, but it's a mind fuck, right? It's sort of like
Mm,
you're, and you know what I mean by saying that, right?
mm-hmm,
It's really difficult then to trust your intuition because you're like, wow, he's so good to me,
mm-hmm,
or he does this and he loves me so much and I really love him. And like everything else is fine. So maybe I could just, yeah, that's a big one. That's a
mm.
trying to work against that power center in you. Ooh, that's a big one. I've been there. I've so been there.
Oh
That's
my
hard.
God, for sure, for sure. And you know, and that's the thing. When we start to settle for something like for the crumbs, because you know, like very often what happens is like that you you date somebody who is like good in this one area, and like we as women we just cling on to this one area. Well, but he's like great at sex, let's say, you know, but
That's
on the
true. That keeps you, that does keep you.
that keeps you like, trust me, and you just like start closing your eyes on other areas. Oh, but he's not like, you know, consistent enough, or but he doesn't do the things that he said he would do, or but he is like, you know, maybe not like showing up where he said that he would, you know. And you start like kind of closing your eyes and not paying so much attention to that, when essentially that keeps you upset, that keeps you dysfunctional. But it's like, oh, but he gives me good sex. But then it's like the good sex becomes less and less important when emotionally you're more and more upset. And then it's like that there is no pleasure it takes in your body, because like again, sex is like the orgasm, for example, is where you letting go of yourself, where you surrendering yourself to your lover, to your partner. And when you cannot trust your partner emotionally, where you feel unsafe emotionally, the fact that you're gonna have a good sex, like a lowering down. You know, I remember myself in a relationship like maybe 7 years ago, with a toxic partner, actually narcissistic relationship. And every time that he would touch me, I felt like I was a piece of meat. Like seriously, it was just crazy. And every time we would go to bed, I was praying that he would not want to have sex with me, because like I was not able to say no. So I was in a way abusing my own, uh, abusing myself by allowing something to happen that I didn't really want to happen.
So where were you in that stage? So you weren't practicing self-love then at all. So
Oh no.
no, so is it so it's almost like from the bottom up, right? So first, like
Mm,
you that analogy that you gave with, or he gives me good sex, and then after a while, your
mm,
emotional needs surpass the physical needs.
mm,
It's
mm-hmm,
almost like when enough becomes enough, you're able to then say, "Well, I deserve better,"
mm,
right?
mm,
Because was that what pulled you out of that? And that looking at women who they don't know what they want, maybe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, maybe they're not at that point where it's like, you know, when you just snap out of it and you're like, okay, this is
mm,
what I want. Because maybe they're so used to trudging
mm.
along that they can bear with it. But for somebody who genuinely is stuck, I mean, what is that first starting point? Like how do you start your self-love journey? Because that then takes you into, being able to resolve childhood trauma and then get comfortable
Mhm.
with yourself and then have good sex and orgasms and all of that stuff. So how do you
Right.
start? So how does that journey start for that woman?
Right. Well, you know, unfortunately but true, this journey for most women starts when the pain becomes greater than the ability to tolerate what happens. and usually it's this dysfunction. It's like when the pain becomes greater and you're like, okay, I can't possibly have another day living like this, because I just gonna either gonna go crazy, or I gonna like do something stupid, so
That's sad
this.
though, because I think women have such a high threshold. I mean, how many have stayed in relationships for years and years and love luxury
Mhm.
marriages until, 15, 20 years later, you're like, okay, I can't.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
kind of sad. Yeah. It's
yeah.
very
And it's a good girl conditioning. You have to be a good girl. You have to be a good woman.
a good
You,
wife. Yeah.
yeah, a good wife. You have to serve your man. It's like, and for example, I've been to a church, where the priest teaches, it's like, to be a godly woman, you have to say yes to your man. You have to be quiet. You have to, it's like
And
stand,
oh, okay.
by his side, and I was like, seriously? Like, what are you saying? He's like,
Yeah, it's like
he's,
wow.
I'm like,
That's
but this explains why we have this like high threshold. Because when something is not right, it's like, oh, but it's okay. But we find excuses for him all the time. But it's like,
yeah. That's you said a lot. It's almost like you have to question authority, don't you? Because just because a
mm,
priest or because I grew up in the church and
mhm,
I would say I'm very spiritual and
mhm,
I love God and
mm,
my Bible is right there as we speak. But I also question a lot of it because some
mm.
of it doesn't feel right.
Right, right.
And that's challenging for myself because there's like that internal conflict,
Mm-hmm,
right? But I believe that we're spiritual beings. I believe that we're sexual beings. I believe that we're
mm,
energetic beings. And if something doesn't feel right, as in, and this is a societal thing, but just the juxtaposition of a woman to a man and how she must be the subservient one, do as she's told, serve, right? Fulfill his needs all of the time. And even in sex, that plays
mm,
out. Because women are
mm,
taught like, you've got to please your husband. How many times
mm,
do you wait for him to be pleasured and satisfied before you put your own needs first?
mm,
So it goes back to conditioning and looking at what and how you've been taught and
mm,
challenging that and asking, is this really true? And is this true for me?
mm.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this is like the best way to do it is like actually be curious.
Mm.
Be curious about, it's like, is this true? Is this true for me?
Yeah.
Because like, people will bend the truth in a ways that is like comfortable for them.
Exactly. Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that most of the time is like in your best interests. It's just as simple as that. And again, when you having this like feeling, and it's like back to your question, where do you start the self-love? It's like actually start acknowledging your thoughts, start acknowledging your desires, and like what actually goes through your mind is like this like, do you spend most time in in a place where you complaining about everything, and like knowing that if you complaining about things, like I had a friend, she probably was complaining about her partner for 5 years, that he was not this, he was not that, and their relationship, they essentially became friends. They haven't had sex, they've been living in the same house for the child, and she was like kept on complaining about him. And again, as a friend in that situation, I felt like I was meant to support her, so I was like listening to her, and I was like, okay, so I can support you. But it was then became very draining for me, because as a friend, I'm worried. It's like she calls me very upset, so I worry. I'm like, oh my God, so give her that energy. But then one time it just became enough. It's like, how long am I going to listen for you? And this is where my boundaries came up. You know, it's like, how long you gonna be using me as your dump, like energetical dump of bad energy, and then you just like gonna dump your shit on me and gonna go and do exactly the same thing that you've been doing for 5 years and do nothing about changing your situation. No more. Thank you very much. No more. I am not prepared to listen to you unless you're going to do something about it. And it's like, and this is the harsh truth. And it's like, I am not willing to conversate with you unless you're gonna go and do something about your situation, because it takes toll on my health, on my well-being, like every like other day when you calling me to like complain. This is just not good enough for me.
Did she change? Did she make a change with her?
Oh yeah, you know, it's like we haven't probably spoken in a few months, but the next time when she called, she was like, "I'm so sorry," and I spent a lot of time crying after that conversation. And actually, she left her partner. She actually started working with me, you know,
Oh,
because she was
wow.
like, because at that time I was writing a program and I was looking for somebody to do a test run for me and see what results they would have. And basically, what happened was like within 5 weeks of that program, she separated from her partner and she actually met a man that right now she lives with. It's like she's 5 weeks.
Wait, hang on. Okay, was she actively looking for somebody?
She just, I think, registered herself on Tinder or something like that, you know,
Good old Tinder.
and she just like started like chatting to this guy and they started like
5
seeing
weeks.
each other. And you know, now she moved out from her like old place into like completely relocated to another area. You know, it's like living with her new partner, having her child, because one of her fears was, oh, I don't want to separate my child from the father.
Yeah,
You
it's a
know, it's like
valid one. Yeah.
yeah, right. And it's like it's so nice to see them together and play and everything. But again, putting herself last, it's like it was coming at the cost of her own happiness.
That's a hard one, Eugenia, because I know somebody now who's just done that,
Mm,
separated from their partner, and it's difficult because again you're going against societal norms of you must keep your family together at all cost. Divorce
mm-hmm,
is not an option, and grin and bear it. Marriage is for
mm,
the long haul, irrespective of
mm,
what's happening. So that's a pretty big thing. But I remember somebody else saying to me, how can you teach your child to love themselves when you're showing them every day in an unhappy marriage that you don't love you?
exactly. Exactly.
That's a big one. So self-love thus far, and we'll keep tapping back into it, acknowledging your thoughts and feelings and setting
Mm,
boundaries. And then by setting those boundaries, you allow yourself to sort of explore more of what feels good to you and
mm,
trusting your intuition. And I guess, like, not like if you in a situation where that inner voice comes up,
mm,
allowing yourself to not doubt it. So what comes, and that is the truth. Is the truth is the truth, and not
mm,
sabotaging it with your own thoughts. Let's
mm,
dive into childhood trauma, because that also has a role to play in how we connect to self, and how you do trust or learn to distrust your inner knowing, right? Because if you've had a pretty traumatic childhood, depending on where that trauma stems from, I know, for a lot of people who've had traumatic childhoods from bad relationships with the parents, for example, it just messes the shit out of you. That's
mm,
it's that's your north star, your guiding star, your protective figures, and you feel very lost in the world. And then you just go on to replicate the same relationships or the same patterns, by choosing people like that, unless you make a conscious decision not to, and you go to the other extreme. So what are your thoughts on childhood trauma and how that actually ties into sex even?
mm. Well, you know, this is a fantastic question.
Thank
And
you.
For sure, because like most of us, we don't even realize what an influence on our lives the childhood trauma has.
Mm.
It's I just recently been having the session with my client, and like one of my like my first session with a client usually lasts about 3 hours, and it's digging deep
3 hours.
into.
Oh my God! Wow, that's long.
Yeah, but it's all because we dig in deep into the core of where the trauma have been created. And sometimes, like, let's say it, like for us as kids, we are like sponges, especially before 9 years old. We observe everything. And it's like, and the entire universe evolves around us.
Mm.
And it's like, somebody said something to you or to somebody else, and you just make it mean something about yourself. And what happened, like with this woman in particular, that she had a 3-minute conversation with her father, where her father was like emotionally avoidant with her as a child. And like what you think is like the whole of her life, she was going for a man who were emotionally avoidant, to especially, it's like to prove them that she's good enough, that she,
Yeah.
is worthy
Yeah.
of their attention,
Yeah.
and it's like practicing that is like, oh my God, it's like, and in those moments you make it mean that I'm not smart enough, I cannot speak up, I cannot, like, for example, my father forgot me in a kindergarten when I was little. So in that moment I have decided that I am not
Mm.
important. And it's like
Mm.
then going throughout my life feeling that I'm not important. It's like having, even when it was so interesting, like speaking up on stages, because I'm a speaker also, right? It's like having that like subtle, feeling inside that people are not interested in what I got to say. That because like this I'm not important little voice of my 4-year-old inside is very strong, because essentially that 4-year-old is ruling the world for me.
Mm.
It's like me in my decisions, what partner do I use, making decisions in who I choose to spend my time with, how I show up in the world. All of that, like my 4-year-old is running the show. It's not the adult.
So can you, I guess for somebody who's listening to this, because I'm thinking, ooh, I mean, but I do the work, right? Because I realize that there are patterns in my life that show up, and I'm like, ooh, okay,
Mm-hmm.
something, universe, God is trying to show me something needs to be fixed. So
Mm-hmm.
I dig and I look around. So basically what I'm trying to ask you is like, how can somebody find that one traumatic event, or if it's not obvious to them? And I look at things that happened in my life that made me feel, when I was little,
Mm-hmm.
it made me feel really bad, like really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I could remember those times as though they were happening now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a nice feeling at all. And having to work
Mm-hmm.
through, okay, it's not me, it's them. I am
Mm-hmm.
enough. And even if they didn't love me, I love me, and I can show myself love in these ways. And even
Mm-hmm.
if I'm not there yet, talking that through with somebody and getting that support to work those feelings. So I think it's so important because, like you said, a 4-year-old running the show and you are a grown woman. I mean, that is a mess, because you're not going to be making decisions. I mean, your brain doesn't fully form until you're 21, right? 21 and 24. So you're not going to be making the right decision. So it's a pretty serious thing.
Mm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so how does one resolve childhood trauma, and how does that look? Let's bring that back to sex. So how does it impact your sex life? So you have child, because you might be thinking, childhood trauma, like I'm fine, everybody has childhood trauma, like it's
Mm.
it's whatever. But when you look at how it impacts sex, because I know for me that I became, I wouldn't say submissive, but I was very uh laid back, very laid back,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I know why, because I could tie it back to certain things that have happened.
Mm-hmm.
And it does impact everything. It does impact how
Mm-hmm.
you show up in sex. It does impact how you show up as a woman. How does childhood trauma look? What does it look like in a sexual relationship?
Oh my God.
It's a good question, right?
Yeah, it's a very deep question.
It
It's very,
is, yeah. It's a personal one as well because people don't want to, and it feels uncomfortable to talk about that
yeah,
because sex is such a private thing. But
yeah.
I think when you're able to even how you relate to people physically,
Mm-hmm.
forget sex, but even how you relate, like how you touch, how you hug, how you kiss, how you connect. Like in my how we grew up in my home,
Mm-hmm.
touch wasn't something that was. I mean, my mom and my dad, like my mom really, my dad wasn't very physical. Um, Hugs and kisses, etc. But even how you relate to friends and sometimes you see people who are very physical with each other as
Mm-hmm.
friends.
Mm-hmm.
And I was never like that because I never
Mm-hmm.
grew up like that, and there's a lot of stuff
Mm-hmm.
around that. And it does impact the intimacy of that type of
Mm-hmm.
relationship because touch brings you closer, doesn't it? So what does it look like? How does it impact sex and
Right.
intimacy?
This is, yeah, like
Let's do
uh,
it.
let's do this for sure. Well, first of all, because, like, again, the example of that client that I just talked about, who have realized that she was looking for her father figure to, like, please and fulfill. Her father actually wasn't affectionate either, or it's like, in fact, all of her family wasn't affectionate. And the first time, she got hugged by her friend when she was 16, and it felt like really weird. You grow up thinking that this is like something unnatural, it's like, yeah, it's quite crazy, and it's like, again, not everyone gonna have the stories like that. It's like that there are more subtle stories or more, intense stories. But however, as a child, you just feel it's like, oh my God, like, I'm not good enough or something like that. So you make it mean about yourself. And again, with the conditioning that uh, okay, with the, like, a child's conditioning that I have to please people, I have to be a good girl to, to be liked. You start saying yes to the things that you don't really want to do. And, like, again, like I was doing, for example, in my past relationships that I talked about, I was saying yes to sex when I actually didn't want to have sex. So I was allowing abuse to happen to me, and it's like, is it like really abuse then when, I didn't want it, but I said yes, and then I end up resenting that my partner.
That's the question. So was he in tune with you enough to know that this was something that you didn't want?
Well, he was a narcissist. He was
Or
only
no,
taking
didn't,
care
yeah.
about his own needs, right?
Yeah.
It's
So
like,
100%, yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I was like, codependent is like, oh, but it's my duty to please him. You
That's
know
a
what I
hard
mean?
one, yeah.
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 So it's like, so when I feel that he supposed to know what I'm feeling, that he's supposed to know that I'm not there, it's like he's supposed to know that I don't want to have sex. But actually, he doesn't, because I don't make it known, because I suffer in silence inside, and I just, like, allow, my body to be used. And it's like, and what I used to do is, like, I've been dissociating from my head, like, like I would close my eyes and imagine that I'm somewhere else. So it's like,
Did you have childhood trauma that was unresolved in your life at that time?
oh, absolutely, I was not aware of it, but I absolutely did have a childhood trauma. And actually, after that relationship, I started looking at that. It's like that was the catalyst for me, because at some point I was like, oh my God, I can't be like this anymore. And what happened actually, my mother, she called me once and she started complaining about my father. And I was like listening to her and I said, well, mom, if you don't like it, then leave. And I put the phone down and I was like, I have exactly the same complaints about my relationship.
So
Like,
that's the scary thing, because I realized that as well. Until you choose, yeah, that's such a that is it's quite shitty, a shitty way to learn, because it's like you choose. It frustrates the life out of me, because it's like so many relationships, until I realized that, like, I have to fix this. I was choosing men who were like my father.
yeah.
Exactly, like, because I understood it. I understood how to work with that personality type. I
Mm,
understood, how to show up, what to do, how to manipulate it. But it's sort of like a sick pull. You're
mm,
constantly working for acceptance that you will never get, because again, it's
mm,
not about you, it's about them. So when you do the work, then you make different choices, you choose better. So yeah,
mhm,
you choose what you know, until you know to choose differently. You do the work and you unravel
mhm,
all of the stuff, and you think, hey, okay, this is me, this is what I need, this type of relationship doesn't serve me, I'm going to choose differently. But it's like, you don't know until you know, kind of thing.
for sure, for sure.
Yeah,
And it's like, and things like that gonna pop into your memory, and most of the time they are unconscious. But then it's like you asked earlier about how do you know how to take yourself back into, like, how to resolve this childhood trauma. I would say, like, by yourself it is much more difficult to do,
yeah,
because you don't know what you don't know.
yeah, it's true. Yeah,
And it's like having that support from, the professional who knows what to do and how to guide you, so that you don't re-traumatize yourself. That is also very important, so that can guide you in a way that feels safe for you, because that child inside most likely is emotionally unsafe, feeling that they are under
yeah,
attack, and it's like having to take care of that child, uh, having to, then change your core beliefs, what actually you have created at that age, like upgrade
it's
your
hard. Yeah.
software. Yeah, it's hard, but it's like, to do that, well, I go by physical sensations. It's like when something doesn't feel right, I would ask myself, when was the first time I felt like this? When was the first time I felt like this? And my body will tell me, because our body is incredible. It has got like incredible memory.
Have you read that book called? I have it on Amazon. It's called Your Body Holds the Key or something. Have you heard of that one?
No, I
Hold
didn't.
on, let me see if I could find it. There's one, and I think I saved it,
Mm,
because it was Your Body. Hold on, guys, it's a really good one. Um, yes, Your Body Keeps Score. Body
mm,
Keeps the Score: Mind, Brain, and Body in the Transformation of Trauma by Basil van der Kolk.
mhm, mhm,
And I like that you said that, because it's like, until you do the work, cellular memory, right? You can almost go back to that
mhm,
feeling, and you can feel the place in your body where you're
mhm,
holding on to that unresolved emotion. That's
mhm.
pretty deep. And then you do need help to try and, work through the releasing of that.
Yeah.
So it's a powerful process, and something that I think a lot of us need. I mean, life, I don't think anybody, sails through life without being, roughed up a little bit, because I mean, this is what, to some extent, this is what we're here for: to learn, to develop, to grow, to be challenged. And it shouldn't
Mm,
always be smooth sailing, but along the way, if you know difficult things happen that have genuinely upset us, and because some people go through some really difficult things that, I mean, I wouldn't probably be able
mhm,
to live through.
Mm.
100% take the time to work through it, because life just becomes so, it's like washing the mud off of like a beautiful diamond, and you
Yeah,
shine after. You know, you really
yeah.
do shine after. Okay, anything else you want to add on to that one with childhood trauma that you think that it's important for people to know about?
Y- Yes, yes. Actually, I would like to add that as like how childhood trauma affects our sex life is not only that you become submissive and you say yes to things you don't want to. It could also go the other way. That it's like that we as women we become um, very violent in terms of
Violence.
like violent in terms of like like in a rough sex.
Ooh,
It's like not
yeah.
like you know um I like me myself, I used to go like the other way. It's like where you don't allow love to happen. It's like it's not a love making, it becomes like, okay, slap me, it's like this kind of things. And then you just like become like,
Breaks off the emotional disconnect, because in that kind of sex, it's not you're not connecting to the emotional needs of the person either. It's like they
yeah,
fling you up. Yeah, yeah, that's an interesting
yeah,
thing.
yeah. And what happens is that you just stop, like what happens, you not allowing to be loved. It's like, for example, because it's such a vulnerable thing to be, in a position where you surrender, where you allow the partner to caress you. Because as a child, you never felt safe in situations. You like essentially couldn't trust your parents. Like, let's say if it's like been, if it has been like, dysfunctional family, like let's say, or if
Yeah,
you're,
like if you take the Caribbean for example, or countries where physical punishment is okay, your body
mhm,
is being violated. You know,
yeah,
that's a big thing that some people don't talk about. Like, you know, in some countries you get the shit beaten out of you, and that's
yeah.
a normal thing, because it's like they use the Bible: spare the rod, spoil the child. I have to discipline you, but I love you. That's a
Mm,
mind fuck,
mm,
you know? So you just think like, and so like, then how do you relate to a partner sexually? It messes, it completely messes with you.
absolutely. So you
Mm,
just like decide that it's not safe for you to trust.
exactly, yeah.
And like, for example, for us, for women, the emotional safety and trust is the foundation for our pleasure.
Let's talk about that, because I was listening to something the other day, and it said that um less than half of all women are able to have an orgasm during sex. Less than half, right? That's the correct stat.
Mhm.
And I was like, whoa, that's a lot of women. What's happening
Mm,
with that? Why
mm,
is it the emotional disconnect? Is it not being able to feel trusted, or is it a physiological thing where some women are just, because there's different types of orgasms, right? So you have like the clitoral
mm,
orgasm, and then there's a vaginal orgasm as well. It's a
mm.
vaginal one that I'm talking about, and then there's like the G spot, and then apparently there's a cervical orgasm, which I'm like, whoa, what's that? But you know, the fact remains that like, you know, less than half are able to achieve, and that's quite a lot. That's quite a big number. So what's happening there?
Yeah, it's unfortunately but true for so many women that
Mhm.
they never have experienced orgasm throughout their life
Like at all.
at all.
Ooh.
Like at all. I work with the women in their 30s, in their 40s, in their 50s, and some even 60s,
Oh,
and
wow.
it's unfortunate but true that some never have experienced orgasm. And again, the reason for that is at the core is because they don't feel safe with their partner. Like they don't feel emotionally safe. And again, it's like I worked with a woman who was separated from her husband, and for 20 years she stayed celibate
By choice?
because by choice, because it's like of the fear of appearing that that she is like a loose woman, that she's slutty.
What?
and
Wow. That's like,
and
wow. Okay. I don't judge because I don't know her. That's wow. That's wow.
yeah, yeah,
Intense. 20 years. No sex.
20 years. And that's the thing. And and then she was wondering why she wasn't feeling that she has got vitality in her body,
Mm.
because like orgasm is our life force, is our vitality, is it's that, it's healing, it's good for your body, for your mental health, for your physical health. It's just like good all around.
Mm.
So having orgasms is really important. But however, when you feel unsafe, and again, the religion has got a lot to play in that, because it's like
Yeah.
shame, guilt,
Yeah.
sin, and you can't do it. I have been working with individuals from like very um, religiously affected, areas, where they've been feeling is like, well, I want to have sex, but I feel ashamed. Or another parts where you would have to like get like drunk or high to have sex, because like otherwise it's like it's shameful. But it's like when you have a drink, your barriers go down, and the next morning it's like, oh, what did I do? This is too crazy. It's like I knew I can't trust myself. I knew that I can't follow what I really want. It's like I can't drink, why do I do this? It's like, and all this. But it's not a drink. It's what happens is your relationship with what you want, because subconsciously you know that you want it, but consciously you make decisions, and your thinking is filtered with the conditioning of your family, society, and it's like, and the rest of it, and what you made it mean when you was a child, and like all of that. So you don't really make clear decisions by yourself unless you become fully aware of what is happening subconsciously. So, in sex, also having pleasure, it's a very vulnerable thing. It's like, how are you supposed to trust your partner if every man in your life has showed you that you cannot trust men? So how is your body supposed to, like, because you can have orgasm and like sexual pleasure when your body is fully relaxed. But if you're constantly subconsciously fighting the battles of who you cannot trust, or like dealing with your spouse, dealing with stress at work, and all of that, that there is so much stress and anxiety that there is no space for pleasure to take place, because it's fully occupied by like everybody else, by the stress, and you just like do it as a chore, essentially. And no wonder that there is no orgasms. And then to top it all off, when we finally choose or like have sex with our lovers and partners, what happens very often that we are too shy to say actually what do we want, what do we like.
You expect them to
And
know, like, where everything is and how to touch.
yeah,
And yeah, it's impossible for them to know.
exactly,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Unless,
And
like, they're a very experienced lover. And even still, then we're all so different.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So then it's like he's there trying to like figure things out. You're like, oh, I don't know what's happening. It's like, well, I knew that there is nothing special about sex anyway. So it's like, then your experience like turns out to be like nothing. And it's like, oh yeah, well, I knew that there is nothing special about sex. And there is no wonder if your sex is not great that you can live for 20 years without it. Because like,
I could not even imagine, like, that's just, that's hard. 20
mm,
years. I believe we're
yeah,
sexual beings. That is just, that's a,
mm,
I mean, that's, I couldn't, mm. So
mm,
let's talk about, so how would you get a woman who's never experienced an orgasm? So let's take this woman. So she's done the work with the self-love, worked through her
mm,
trauma. Now it's like, okay, time to jazz up my sex life. Let's have an orgasm a day. I heard
mm,
some article I was reading was saying that daily orgasms are great. And this one lady who's lived into her like her late 80s with like they were saying like she doesn't barely have any wrinkles, she's really happy. And she's like her trick is to have an orgasm a day,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Now imagine if we could all do that. Amazing.
Mm.
There was one lady who said she did this experiment where she had an orgasm a day for a year. And I was like, oh, that's a lot. And one a day for a year. I was like, whoa. So how do you teach or how do you teach a woman to have an orgasm who's never had one before?
Mm.
What's the journey
Well,
like?
I teach, first of all, to get to know yourself,
Mm.
because you have to know first and foremost what you like and what you don't like.
So you're talking about self-love, self-touch, self-pleasure.
Yeah,
Let's talk about that.
absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
for people who are, because we spoke about religious conditioning, right?
Mm-hmm.
I did an interview with this another self pleasure coach who said broke down the meaning behind the word masturbation, and it's quite a derogatory name, so she didn't like it. So she said self something else. She termed it. Can't remember it right now. That for somebody who is religious or connects to God, or has been trained that that is not good,
Mm-hmm.
right? How do you get them to understand that it's just the same as touching your, rubbing your arm and what feels good, getting to know the pleasure points in the body? How do you get them to disconnect that from being a bad thing? Because understanding what feels good to you could never be a bad thing.
Mm.
You
Right,
understand?
right.
Yeah. So how do you work
Absolutely.
through that with somebody? The
Well,
guilt
again,
and the shame. Sorry, I
yeah,
keep going
it
because
ties.
it's you're doing it, but like you're like, oh my, because I know people who are like, all the people who are like, oh, if I touch myself, I can't enjoy it because I feel like I'm doing something wrong, or I feel really
Mhm.
dirty, or I feel really shameful. And I don't know what feels good. I don't know how to make myself feel good. So then
Mm.
how do you tell your partner, okay, touch me here, or
Mm.
put more pressure there, or do this
Mm.
there?
Mm.
You can't. So how do you
You
work through
can't.
that? You can't, yeah.
So, well, first of all, really understanding where this shame comes from. Where did you learn it? Because again, it's like that there is so much um, shame and guilt around our body image, and you probably know that working with women, like
Yeah.
on their body image, that it's like, oh my god, maybe I'm wrong shape, maybe I'm bigger, maybe I'm smaller, and it's like we constantly criticize ourselves.
Yeah, that's a big one. That's true. It's so
So
true.
so
Yeah.
it's like, also for a woman, to actually feel sexy, it's like for us to have pleasure, to feel turned on, it's like we have to feel turned on by ourselves. It's like when you look at yourself in the mirror, it's like, oh yeah, hey baby, I do you.
Ah, yeah.
It's like, unless you feel that you would do yourself, it's like,
Yeah.
I'd say that it's very hard to feel turned on otherwise, like really turned on. But when you feel like, yeah, I look sexy right now, it's like when you allow yourself to feel that and accept that, it's like, fuck yeah,
Mm.
I am sexy, I am attractive, my body can hold pleasure and will hold pleasure. This is when you start opening up. This is where you actually are ready to experience pleasure in your body. But then until you like start feeling like, oh, but maybe not, but it's like I shouldn't be touching myself, it's like going to the root. It's like, where did I learn that for me, my body is shameful? Where did I learn that it's shameful for me to touch myself? What was the experience like? Who did tell me that? And then asking yourself again, this is curiosity, is this ultimately true? Like right now, because there is a child that have been told something, and been told most likely by adult who had like our parents, you know, it's like they didn't know better because this is what they've been told. So we can't even blame them, you know. It's like they've been told the same thing and they passed on the knowledge to us. That there is like society, there is like church, priest, you know, it's like all of this. It's like this is what have been happening for generations and generations. And I believe that right now it's our time to break the cycles of dysfunction and actually bring our pleasure forward. And this is why I'm waking up at 3:30 in the morning to talk about topics like this, because this is so, you know,
Important.
juicy and important. Absolutely, you know. And it's like, and when I see a woman that puts her pleasure at the back of the list of importance, that just breaks my heart. Because like, come on, this is your vitality, this is your sanity. Your orgasm is healing for your body, mind and spirit. Your orgasm is important because I've been working with a woman who was trying to get pregnant with her partner, but then she was not enjoying the sex that, you know, with him. And I was like, girl, like seriously, like what are you doing? It's like you are trying to conceive a child as a chore in your relationship. Do you imagine the energy you put into that? You know, so that, you know, it's like your child is conceived not with love, but with some sort of resentment because you simply cannot express your needs, wants, and desires to your lover, to your partner. It's like, how, you know, it's like, and she was like, oh, but you know, but it's okay. And again, going into that, you know, place of, yeah, I'm just gonna serve him what he wants, and it's easier for me just not to say what I want. It's like it's less vulnerable. Sorry.
Okay. Is that what that was her mindset? That's what she said. It's easier for her to give him what she wants, what he wants. You're off. You're on mute, Eugenia. Like not literally something with your mic. No, I can't. I can lip read.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. It's your headphones. Okay, maybe let's put the volume up a little bit. Can you put your volume up a little bit?
Can you hear me?
A teeny bit louder.
Okay, I think it's the maximum. Let me try again with this
Okay,
headphones.
yeah.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but quietly.
Oh, that's so strange.
Okay, that's okay. I
And
just
right
my
now?
volume. Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Okay, perfect.
So let's talk about what a self-pleasure practice should look like, how a woman should start doing that, and how often.
Well, you know, I know that some teachers suggest that you start your day with an orgasm
Start your day. Oh, right. Really? That's juicy.
because that's super juicy and it's
Can I
super
ask a question?
activating.
So is that
Yeah.
with the use of toys or what? How are you starting yourself? Because I clearly I don't. So how do you start daily? Wow. Okay, let's talk about that. What does that look like? Do you encourage the use of toys or not? Or
You know, use of toys in moderation is great. However, I also know some women who've been addicted to the toys. And it's like then quite difficult to get satisfied by the real thing, you know. And yeah, I'd be very careful with using the toys. However, you know, I like what I suggest to my clients is actually start exploring their bodies themselves. So like run a bubble bath for yourself, you know. It's like put some romantic music, like basically what would you like to receive from your lover and give it to you by yourself, you know. Yeah, like get some coconut oil, start rubbing your body, just feel where it feels good. It's like, oh, I like this. It's like, oh, this feels nice. Oh, maybe I would like a little more pressure here and it would be nice. And just start exploring like where your fantasies are taking you. Because like we all have sexual fantasies, and it's like just so many of us don't accept them. It's like, oh, no, no, can't go there. Just allow yourself to go there and just see what excites you. And yeah, just like start exploring your body, start exploring your genitals, because like you don't like, so it just actually blows my mind that so many women never seen their genitals.
That one, that one is a hard one because it is you. It is your body, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a big thing around shame, I would say. That's a huge thing
Mm-hmm.
around shame.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, especially as it like you have children and even how you refer to your vagina, the name that you have for it. And actually, I think that has a lot to do with self pleasure because if you can't look at it, then how can you love it? How can you
Mm,
enjoy it? For me,
mm,
your vagina is your vagina, just like your
mm-hmm,
leg is your leg, just like your foot is your foot, right? It's
mm-hmm.
just another part of you. So that I think is really important. And I think I read or I heard that you sit with the mirror and you just look and you just get comfortable and you
Yeah.
stand naked in front of the mirror and you just accept. You don't judge, you don't criticize, you don't try to change or want anything to be. This is who I am.
Mm-hmm,
I am enough as I am.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's powerful and freeing. I'm enough. Then
Yeah,
start from there. That's how I would do it. But
yeah,
anyways,
yeah.
carry on.
And that may feel very uncomfortable in the beginning,
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
and that also very possibly would bring a lot of emotions, and just like standing with those uncomfortable emotions and feeling them, because we are so uncomfortable in feeling uncomfortable emotions, like, oh, this is painful, no, 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 I can't possibly go there. Go
Mm,
there. Go
mm,
there. Feel the uncomfortable emotions and get past them, because the more uncomfortable you are and the more you allow yourself to feel that, it will pass. Everything in life is a phase. And when you allow yourself to feel and accept, it's like, oh, that feels uncomfortable. Okay, I'm just going to keep going. And then the next day, you're going to come and stand in front of that mirror, because that is a great practice. It's like, and you'd be like, oh, I'm feeling less uncomfortable. And then you will do it again and again and again. And you come to the point where actually I feel very comfortable at looking at myself in a mirror. I'm looking very
yeah,
comfortable.
it's just I use an analogy in class sometimes with you go like I always say welcome the burn, love the burn. Like when you're doing like I love the squat. It's one of my favorite
Mm-hmm.
exercises, right? I squat all
Mm,
the time. And some people might like give up when it becomes
mm,
too hard, but then they say, well, how do I become stronger? Well, you come stronger by overcoming your weaknesses and working through the points where you want to give up, the points where it
mm-hmm.
feels too hard or too
Mm-hmm.
uncomfortable. um when you push through that, you do become strong. You're able to do 1 rep more than 2 reps more than 3 reps more, and then all of a sudden you're squatting for days. It's the same thing like you just said. After a while, looking at yourself in the mirror just becomes it's a non-entity. It's not a big deal. This is me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. I'm at peace with who I am. And then I
Mm,
think being able to dive into that sort of you know orgasm a day first thing in the morning, it becomes more doable because you're
mm-hmm.
comfortable with yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the
Mm-hmm.
shame is gone because you've taken the time to sit with the discomfort and to sit with the the guilt and the shame of, oh, I shouldn't really be doing this, or like, why am I doing
Mm.
this?
Mm.
Yeah.
Because it's feels good.
I love it. Okay, so starting off your day with a self-pleasure practice daily. Now, I want to dive into um how to orgasm in sex if you haven't been able to do that, because a vagina without the use of toys, how do
Mm-hmm.
you how does that happen? Obviously, you've
Mm-hmm.
been talking a lot about being emotionally connected to your partner, which
Mm-hmm.
I guess that is really, in my opinion, from what you said, the most important thing. Because if you're not trusting him emotionally, then, because like when you orgasm, right, it's just like you feel free, nothing else matters. You're at that point of complete, total and utter bliss, completely relaxed. But if you
Mm-hmm.
don't trust your partner, then there's a part of you that's a little bit rigid. And in order to get to that point of orgasm, you've got to be completely relaxed. And anyway, let me not talk too much. In my opinion, you've got to be completely relaxed and
Yeah.
willing to let go, and like really, going where it feels good and allowing yourself to go further into that. How does a woman who is it possible for a woman who's not connected emotionally to her partner to orgasm?
I'd say yes, for sure.
Let's talk about that.
Because,
How? That's a good answer. I like that answer.
yeah, because, again, our bodies are incredible. And sometimes, our body will go with the physiological sensations. And it's like, let's say in my abusive relationships in the past, even though I didn't want to have sex with my partner, but I would orgasm, or like I would make myself orgasm. Um, I would dissociate from my body, and in my head, I would have sex with somebody else.
Okay. So you're not even with him. Right.
Right, right.
Interesting. Okay.
So that was my coping mechanism, because
Mm.
like I had to like get out something out of it. Like if I'm there already, I'm like, honey, I'm having an orgasm, It's like,
Okay, that makes sense. Okay. That's one way of doing it.
yeah, well, for sure. But then again, it's like there are some women who can easily receive an orgasm, as much as there is women who cannot receive orgasm, cannot have orgasm. There are women who can easily have orgasms, and it's like they don't really need to be emotionally connected to their partners, to their lovers. Not everyone is the same, and it's like our bodies operating in a very unique ways, and like, for example, clitoral orgasm, you can like pretty much have an orgasm anytime, all the time, as long as you know what turns you on, and like like what excites you and how to touch yourself.
I think that's the easiest one to have.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
for sure. But when you start like doing that all the time, and you start relying on it, you actually start depriving yourself of the possibility to have another orgasm if you really want to experience that. Because some women may be okay with just like having that, but it doesn't mean that there are no other options. But then
Mm.
again, how you can actually experience a deep orgasm, it's by starting communicating your needs, wants and desires and your boundaries. Because like when we start assuming things, that, and things don't go according to what we want, like let's say you get in for a saucy date or like night with your lover, and you're just like, oh yes, so now I love myself, I'm like all juicy, I'm all like you know the coconut oil ready, it's like everything is like the candles are lit, it's like, okay, let's do this. And then you go into experience, and then like let's say your partner wants to penetrate you before you're ready, like before, like he wants to go too quick, and it's like, oh my God, what's going on here? This is not what I envisioned, but okay, yeah, let's go with this again by not communicating. But then it's like what happens, it's before the session, and so many people tell me, it's like, oh, but it's gonna kill the vibe. I want it to develop naturally. And it's like, honey, if like for so many years it didn't develop naturally, the chances that it will are very slim. So it's like for you to sit with your partner and actually talk to him. It's like, hey, I really enjoy when you do this. I really would love you to do more of this, and you can actually design your experience together. Like you can actually say, it's like, I don't really like when it doesn't really feel good when you do this, but instead I would love for you to do this to me. That really makes me hot. And you just like start communicating what feels good, what feels right, so that your partner have tools, what to use for your body. Because like, trust me, he wants to give you pleasure. If he's having sex with you, he wants to give you pleasure. And that has been like a massive revelation for me in this work. It's like, because I come from the environment where all men wanted to hurt me all the time. I could not trust men. But then when I started learning more and more about like men and women dynamics, and it's like that men actually want to serve me, that men actually want to please me, and like they want me to have pleasure when we having sex. I was like, oh, are you serious? This is what you like. Okay, I'm starting communicating.
You
That
have to
was.
have, it's almost like you have to have a partner who's on the same page and willing, because there's some in my experience, there's some, when I say my experience personally, and what I know of those close to me, there's some guys who don't give a shit. Like, it is about them. It is about their satisfaction and, you know, their pleasure. But then there are equally men who their satisfaction comes from seeing you satisfied, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
about having a partner who's on board and willing to sort of go on that journey, because it's like I don't know, tell me if I'm wrong, very unlikely that you've never orgasmed before and you're doing everything that you're supposed to do, and then bam, you have sex, and you guys are exploring, and all of a sudden he hits that spot and you're like, like it just doesn't happen like that. So it's about having somebody who's willing to change the dynamics of that sexual relationship and use it as sort of as an exploratory, I don't know if that's the
Mm-hmm.
word, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Time to figure out, okay, let's see what feels good, where, how, blah, blah, blah. And
Mm-hmm.
then figure out this is the path to it. So the communication is, I think, I mean, I would completely change the way that I was having sex if that was, something that I would be doing, and not make it about, I'd make it about me. For I
Right.
would. You can tell me if I'm wrong, but I'd make it about me. This is my time for you and I to figure out what feels good and how I can,
Mm-hmm.
reach climax as well. I have a question. So for people, so clitoral orgasms easy. Vaginal, cervical, G-spot orgasms. Can you talk about that? What they look like, or how somebody could accomplish that? What are your thoughts on that? Should you be aiming for
Sure.
that? Is it important? Does it feel significantly different?
Well, like some people say that, like, for example, Tantra teaches that not like sex should be a goalless practice, for example.
Should be or shouldn't be?
Should be a goalless practice. So
A
when you
goal less
remove the,
practice. All right.
yeah, when you remove the goal from, like it's like an objective. Oh yeah, let's go for the orgasm. It's kind of, makes you more in your head, and it's like, oh, am I in, am I there yet? Am I there yet? Am I there yet? and then it's like you're never gonna get there because you just like put in so much,
Pressure, yeah.
pressure on having an orgasm. So I'd say removing the objective from like of orgasm, having an orgasm from your having sex definitely helps. However, when you have an orgasm, it's like it's really, really nice. So aiming for that, I have this a way of thinking that I like to be intentional, but not having expectations. And I can tell you, like, I could not have an vaginal orgasm for like most of my life. I was just not been able to have that. And the reasons why, because I didn't trust men enough. But when I finally met a partner who I could trust and explore sexuality with him and who responded well to my instructions, I actually could feel more and more my body relaxing into our lovemaking. I felt more and more my body softening. And I felt more and more that I can have the orgasm. And I remember that one particular moment, like when we were making, like when we were about to make love, I actually said it out loud to him. It's like, my intention for this lovemaking is to experience the orgasm, like internal orgasm. And I said that, and he was there, and he was like, okay, but he didn't take it up on him like it's like, okay, that's my challenge now. There was no ego whatsoever. There was like, okay, let's just flow and see what happens. Let's just go with the feeling that feels good to both of us. So we just like went. And basically what happens is like when you start trusting yourself and trusting your body, and there is your lover that you trust, and when you just like move your body to what feels good to you, and you don't try to make sense out of it or judge yourself or like anything, you just like completely surrender yourself to pleasure. You just allow yourself go and feel more and more of it, like without having this like, oh, is this an orgasm, we're gonna get one. You just like, okay, let's feel it, because your body knows. Your body knows what you need, your body knows what you want, your body knows how to give it to you, and you just like go and just, this feels good, okay, go more into that. This feels good, go more into that. Don't try to rationalize it, just feel, because it's all about feeling. And when you allow yourself to feel that, and to feel that pleasure, and to feel that pleasure and allow yourself not to think about anything else, then the more pleasure is taking space in your body. And this is where the orgasm starts. It's like, this is where the orgasm takes place, where you just like, okay, this feels good, and I'm gonna do more of it and more of it and more of it. And before you know it, it's like your body is just fully, like exploding with so much wonderful emotions and feelings. And like, oh my God, it's like, I got so excited when I had like my first vaginal orgasm. I was like, oh my God, did you feel it? Did you feel it? I felt like, like these things like swelling inside of me. They just like, how did you feel? It's like, because this is a massive thing. It's like
Right.
all my life, where was this all my life? It's like, how can I just experience this right now?
That's good. That is good. Okay. That's, what I like, that what you just said is that your body knows, and that's, I think that's the most empowering thing from tonight, because some people might be just so frustrated and like, it could never happen for me, or I've done the whole self pleasure thing and it still didn't work. But trusting that your body knows and just going with what feels good, that's not hard to do at all. It's not hard to do at all.
It's
I like
not,
it.
it's not. And it's like, for those women who are wondering, will orgasm ever happen for me? It's like, I had my first internal orgasm, like I just described, after 30. So it's like, come on, it can happen. Like your body doesn't know age, like age difference is like whether you're 20 or you're 50 or you're 60, you can have an orgasm. And if, for example, you stopped like being sexually active for a long period of time, it doesn't matter. You still like, you don't get like out of date, it's like
Okay,
your body doesn't get out of date.
it knows what it's
For
doing. So
sure.
talk to me now, because this is a new thing. What book did I read it in? Can't remember. There's a book, Pussy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it was that book though, or another book. Can't remember which one. And it was talking about exploring the cervical orgasm. What's your experience with that? Because that sounded a little bit wild to me. I was like, oh, I've never had one of those. What's that like? Is it possible? What are your thoughts on it?
It's possible, and again, it takes like some exploration.
Yeah.
It takes clear communication with your partner. It's like I feel that communication is foundation to everything and
Everything.
anything.
Mm.
Yeah, and it's like if you want to experience something and you're curious, you need to talk about it. It's like if you like, I've been in situations like with my legs wide open, and it's like with my partner, it's like, okay, let's just explore what it feels like. What is there inside of me? How does it work? Let's find the G spot. Let's find like what happens if you press there. Where does it feel good? Where does it not feel good? And you just like literally like sit there and explore with your partner. And it's like, and then it's like, oh, this feels good. It's like, what happens if you do more of that? It's like, and before you know it, that there is like some fireworks that are happening, for you.
But you have to have the right partner, because as you're saying that, I'm thinking that sounds like amazing with a man who is as equally vested in you as you are him, for both of you to be satisfied. But in a relationship where the man doesn't care about your pleasure, your satisfaction, then it doesn't happen, does it? And then
And
what?
then you question, like, is it in my best interest to be in this relationship at all?
Do you think that sex has or should have that much power in a relationship if your sex life isn't satisfactory and your partner is unwilling to change? Is it worth questioning the
Well,
yeah, is it worth is
I
that
know one
relation?
thing that
Go ahead, you
I
read it,
know
my
that sex is a glue. Yeah, yeah. I know that the sex is a glue to a relationship. And I also know if the glue to a relationship. Without sex, relationship is a friendship, in my opinion. And what I can say is that if your partner is dismissive of your pleasure in sex, that most likely your partner is dismissive of your happiness and well-being in other areas of your life and other, aspects of the relationship. And this is why it makes me say, it's like if he's dismissive of your pleasure, then, it's like it's worth start considering, if this relationship are actually working in your best interests, or why are you staying in the relationship.
Can I ask you a question? So now sex is the glue, right?
Mm-hmm.
But let's look at, okay, so sex is the glue in a relationship. Let's look at, so I was taught no sex before marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. But then sex, how do I put this question? Because there's a lot that I want to ask you. So to me,
Mm-hmm.
if you're in a relationship, right, the sex can be so good it can cloud other things like we spoke about earlier, with the sex being good, but it's not other things are not being fulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
And then now we have sex being the glue, but maybe somebody's hesitant to start having sex too early on because you can cloud it. How do you know how a man would be or a partner would be in a sexual relationship before you go there? Are there things that you can look for to say, okay, this, before we get to that point, I know that this man, this person will be attentive and attuned to giving me pleasure and satisfying me and going with me to where my desires are. Does that make sense?
Mm.
It's a bit of a deep kind of.
Mm. In terms of like prediction, I think we have a sense, we have a sense. It's like maybe the way he touches you, and it's like, oh, I like, it's like how he touches, like, let's say my shoulders, and that's nice. But then again, maybe he would be touching your shoulders in a nice way, but then it's like when when the thing's gonna get escalated and you're gonna have sex, it could be different, so again, communication, it's all in communication. It's all talking about what you like, what you dislike. I can't just emphasize enough how important it is. Communication
You keep
is.
going back, but then this is my thing, Eugina. Like, you could, because there have been so many times when it's like men almost get carried away, right? You talk, and this is like, how do you know? Because I'm just thinking of women who may be listening to this and thinking, okay, it's all about communication and letting, and him, taking time, etc. But how do you know, and him respecting my desires? I guess you can't really know until you get to that point, right? Of when you're actually in the act, because they could talk a good game and say, oh, and show you every sign, and then you come down to it and they get carried away. 2 minutes later, they're done, flumped on the bed, sleeping. And you're just like, okay, what about me? So I guess it's a difficult. You understand what I'm trying to say, right? Like, you can't really predict.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But actually, not that long ago, I have wrote this article about importance of the aftercare after sex, because that is just not looked at enough. Because like everyone is like, yeah, sex, 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 but nobody actually pays attention to what happens after sex. And in my opinion, we form the most trauma after sex. It's like when, like, let's say this scenario where he just like falls asleep and you like, hey, what about me? It's like, and you feel alone and used and abused in that scenario, or like you have sex and it's like it has been great, but then, like, let's say if it's a single woman, he never calls you again afterwards, or like or your partner just like dismissive afterwards. So again, it's super important to talk about. It's like, hey, this is what my like needs, wants, and desires are in sex, but also as the aftercare. I actually have a template of the conversation called RBDSM, where you talk about, you have like a template what to talk about. Is like your boundaries, like relationship status, the boundaries, your desires, you talk about the meaning of this interaction. You talk about, your sexual health, because nobody talks about that either. It's like, hey, and what do you need after sex? What do you need after having sex? It's like,
I never thought about the afterthought of that ever. Like, that doesn't come into my mind when you talk about sex. And I guess that having that whole conversation before you even get to the sex part gives you
mm-hmm,
an indication of, okay, this person might or might not be the best partner for me, because then you can look at how they're responding physically
mm-hmm,
and verbally, and then intuitively know if
mm-hmm.
this person is going to be the right one for me. So that's clever. I've never done
Yeah,
that. Never done
yeah,
that.
yeah. One of like not one of, but my best sexual experiences were when I pre-designed them. Like, this is the thing that I was sharing early. It's like the main question here for people is like, but don't you gonna kill the moment? It's like, you know what? The moment gonna get killed if you in the situation that you don't feel pleasure, that you don't enjoy, and that you feel violated. That would kill the freaking moment. It's
So
like,
how do you pre-design it then? So like, so you ask these questions about before, during, and after sex, what it looks like,
mhm,
sexual health,
mhm,
all of that
mhm.
stuff, and then what?
And then you go and create it. And then it's like, okay, well, it sounds like, let's say, it sounds like we're on the same page. Let's like make those desires become a reality. And then you design your experiences. Like, it's again, it's all in conversation. Okay, you set the time, you set the date. It's like maybe it's the same day, you know. It's like maybe you want something, you know, extraordinary. Maybe you want to make like date, you know, out of it. Maybe you want to, you know, just like, okay, so now we had this conversation, let's just like start now, you know, or something like that. It's like, what do you need to start? It's like basically being attentive and inquisitive to each other's needs. It's being understanding of each other's needs, and it's being um, valuing each other. Because like for him, he probably gonna have as many needs as you do. It's just like, and he probably gonna like, we don't practice to talk about these things. We don't practice to, you know, communicate what is important to us. We don't practice to communicate our desires. We don't practice to communicate our boundaries or even sexual health. It's like, come on, it's like still people go to sexual health clinic is like trying not to be seen, is like, you know, it's like
100%.
it's like,
It's like you don't need anybody to see you there thinking like, oh, something is wrong with me, but it is important. It is important. A
yeah.
100% is important. And you know what I liked you what you said as well is that he has as many desires and needs as you do. And sometimes, like for me, in my mind, I think, okay, his only outcome is to come. That's it.
Mm,
That's the end goal. It's he needs to come. He needs to be satisfied, and then that's it. But actually, you know, maybe he needs to be touched or caressed or kissed. You know,
mm,
as well, and then that takes away that as well. Just the thought of thinking about your partner in a different way of satisfying him takes away takes the focus off of you needing to also climax and just being able to
mm,
to give and receive pleasure. So that's a
mm,
pretty powerful thing. That's I like that a lot.
mm,
um as you've mentioned it, do you want to just quickly talk about sexual health and why this is something that you talk about in the work that you do? Obviously it's a part of the work that you do, but
mhm,
it seems like this is something that has importance in how it frames, you know, your views around sex. So
mm.
what are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts about our sexual health and especially women's health is I work with women who like have had like incredible like cysts on their wombs, you know, or like who are bleeding when they having sex, you know, like something. And like doctors said that there is nothing wrong with them, that their results like coming back as normal, like not with the cysts obviously, but you
The
know, it's like,
bleeding after sex?
yeah,
That's not
yeah,
normal. Okay,
it's not
that's
normal.
yeah.
But it's, for example, our womb is our universe, it's our intuition, is the place where you grow your child, you know. And what happens is that if your womb is storing a trauma, that the likely that she gonna accept a cock will be very very slim, you know. So it like it comes from emotional emotions, like our body mind and spirit is very powerful. And our, you know, feeling not being safe emotionally translates into not like a rejection of something that you don't feel safe about physically. So it's again, it's like working through the trauma that have been caused to you, working through the resentments towards men, because like again, when you are turned on, you know, your vagina expands, it swells up, it's like it becomes bigger. But when you, like, I worked with women who feel very tight, like really really tight, you know, that the penis actually cannot enter. And it's again,
That's very tight.
yeah, that's very tight, and that happens because your body is rejecting the the penis, the partner, the lover, because emotionally there is no safety. So, you know, it's very important to talk about sexual health. And it's like, for example, if you are with a new lover, if you're with a new partner, discussing is like, hey, when the last time you done a sexual checkup? Hey, when would you like to use condom for this experience? Or maybe are you on any contraceptive medicine, like contraception, you know, pills, or like what do you use? Like talking about things like when you're gonna come, where where would I like you to come? Where would you like to come? You know, is it okay for you to come inside of me? Because again, when it comes, like when the sex gets to the, like, you know, to the orgasmic point, like where you about to have an orgasm and he's about to ejaculate, it's like this is the point where we as women, if like we feel unsafe, it's like what is going to happen.
Yeah, that's true. It's
And
true. Yeah, that's we don't talk about that, do we?
no, we
And
don't.
why do you think we don't feel safe?
Well, to scare his feelings, you know, to hurt his feelings. It's like, how, but you know, if I'm gonna say something, it's just gonna hurt his feelings. But then we like quiet and like hurting ourselves.
Is it because of where he wants to come or what?
Um, well, it's uncomfortable to talk about it. It's like um,
Mm,
people
I think
like,
so. For some people,
for some people less than others, but like let's say if you have been experienced shame in
yeah,
sexuality and
yeah.
around your body, and like you just start exploring, it's like talking about come, it's like, oh, I don't know how to even, how would you even start a conversation like that? And it's like,
Is it in your
yeah.
template? The questionnaire. Is it in your questionnaire?
Actually it's not, but maybe it needs to be there.
Yeah, that's a good question though, because like, some guys can be quite disrespectful with it. Or for
Mm,
example, if you don't want somebody coming inside of you and you haven't had that conversation and then they think
yeah,
it's okay. I mean, that's a huge thing.
yeah,
Potential risk of pregnancies and all of that stuff. I mean, that's a big, especially if it's unprotected, that's a big, a very important conversation to have, I would say.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely, absolutely. And it's like, hey, you know, and to be honest, when it, like in my experience, when you express yourself and you try to communicate, when it comes from your heart, you don't gonna hurt anyone's feelings. But it's like taking the stand for what is important to you, for your pleasure, for your life, for your experience, you know, it is important that you say how you feel. It is important that you say what is important to you. And let's say it's like, hey, you know, we're having this sexual experience and I would prefer for you not to come inside of me. Maybe you can come on my belly. You know,
Mm.
maybe, you know, it's like maybe somewhere else, you know, it's like, I don't know. It's like, it's up to you what you choose, but you just like let him know that I wouldn't want you to come inside of me.
I
Like
I
simple as
think
that. And you know,
yeah.
on
Go ahead. Sorry, you broke up a little bit. Go
sorry
ahead.
to
It's okay. Go.
to interrupt, but on Instagram, I've just seen this like little video about the woman singing. It's like the pull-out method doesn't work. She's like having like lots of children around her, and she's singing. It's like, ladies, I'm just telling you that pull-out method does not help, and the pre-cum does exist. And it's like, basically, it's just like great videos. So, like also be aware that there's still possibility to get pregnant if you're using a pull-out method.
Yeah. It's a lot. Sex is such, it's a big, it's a big thing. But what I've gotten from you tonight rather, it boils down to communication with self first. So getting to know yourself, having that internal dialogue. Okay, how am I showing up now? What do I need? Where do I need more help? Where do I need more support? Where hurts, like emotionally? How can I heal myself? And then allowing yourself to go on that journey of healing the trauma, and not just fixing it once and being like, okay, I'm fine, but making it, for me, it's like making it. I was talking to somebody today about her life, and she had a really hard life. And I was saying to her, and she works herself to the bone, and I know that it's part of not wanting to address the trauma that she's experienced, as so many of us do. A lot of us mums use that, or women use the excuse of, oh, I'm so busy, I'm so this. And that busyness is almost a facade. It's like you don't want to sit with yourself and work through all of the shit that's happened because it's too hard. And I was saying to her, like, you need to try this therapy. And I was like, well, actually, no, it's not just one type. Like right now, I'm incorporating crystal healing, Reiki, reflexology, talking therapy, dowsing, crying, whatever time alone, isolation, going out into nature, all of that stuff I'm putting into my, that's what Nora is doing, because I realized that you're going to need different things at different parts of your journey, and there's no one thing that's going to fit everything. And then when I look at how I connect to self, another thing that somebody had said to me was like, we need to start teaching our children not to feel guilty with pleasure. So allowing them, like, if they like, because children are very like for example, I was giving my daughter kisses yesterday before she went to bed, just kissing her. She's like, Mom, Mommy, I like it, that feels really nice. And I could never say that to my parents, because it's like, there's shame around that, how we grew up in the Caribbean, like you don't do that. But for me, like, it's just a kiss, and she's first of all, we're bonding because I'm connecting with her like that, and second of all, she's free to feel how she wants to feel. So she's not going to have any hang-ups about when she goes into a relationship, even though I'm her mom and that's a daughter. It may be different if it was a dad and daughter, but it's still touch and physical connection all the same. And children being allowed to, with simple things, hugs, massage, what feels good, teaching them, maybe even with the feel of clothes, for example, or like temperature in a bed or the sheets, what feels good, allowing them to get pleasure from things. That's super important. And then, going back to that communication with self, working through trauma, incorporating different healing practices, it really does come down to, for me, what I got out of this, which I think it's massively important, is before you get down to anything sexual, where I think many of us make that mistake, is going sex first instead of speaking first, is it's finding out, and not to judge, because I mean most people have done it, like you find somebody, they're very attractive, and then it's just like bam bam bam. It happens. But I think if you're looking at this as okay, how can I have it be a pleasure practice, because that's what sex is to me. It is pleasure, it is satisfaction, it is your desires and your fantasies being fulfilled or explored. It's really about having that conversation. So I would love to see your template sheet and share that with people, if that's something that you share, if it's not part of your program. What I need, what I want, what feels good to me, and likewise for your partner, and seeing if you guys are aligned. And then if you are aligned, trusting your gut. And then if you are aligned, being comfortable with who you are, loving who you are, knowing that you're enough, and working through that. If you don't feel like that, giving yourself the time that you need, not rushing that process, either. so that sex becomes just, you know, the beautiful, fulfilling thing that it is. So that's been
Mm,
really, really powerful. Any last words? I have one last question.
mhm,
Top 3 tips to have amazing sex. Don't think about it. Give me your top 3. Ready, set, go.
mm. Don't overthink.
Don't overthink. Yep.
Communicate well.
Yes, that's your big one.
And just go with what feels good. It doesn't have to make sense. Just go with what feels good.
Really good piece of advice as well. Doesn't have to make
Mm.
sense. Just follow the feeling. Any last words or anything else that you want to add in before we round up?
Sure. If like you felt something, that triggered your thinking from anything that we have discussed here today, um, you're very welcome to reach out to me and have a conversation with me. I will share the link with you where you can book your call. Is absolutely free, and we can discuss in more depth your situation if something is happening for you. Because like what happens most of the time, that we suffer in silence when something doesn't feel right. We don't feel comfortable to go to our friends or family because like like what they're gonna say, how they're gonna feel, or like for whatever reason. And sometimes you just need to talk to somebody else who's not in your circle and who's not emotionally involved in the situation. So I would love to invite you to have a conversation with me, and if I can help you in any way to move past any challenges that you may face in your personal relationships or in your personal relationships with yourself, I would absolutely love to do that, because like, again, you're worth it. Your pleasure is important. You loving yourself and living your best life filled with love, filled with pleasure, setting a great example to your children is important. Like I mentioned before, you are here to break this cycle of feeling disempowered and disconnected from what is important to you. So it's time to make a change. And if
So
you
where can
feel
people find you on like social media? Are you on Insta, Facebook, TikTok, Snap?
oh gosh,
All of that.
well, I'm using mostly Facebook and Instagram, and my name is Eugina O Liberty. You can find me. I'm pretty much all the time online. I'm actually posting some awesome content that would be very educational, and it's free. And I have a group for women on Facebook, and it's called the Orgasmic Queen Self-Love.
Winning. That sounds really good. Okay,
Yeah.
we will add the information on the at the bottom of this chart, so that will all be listed there. And what's your website?
My website is actually currently like being updated, so it's not working right now.
So
But
Facebook
yeah,
is the best way.
yeah, Facebook or Instagram, yeah, is the best right now.
And are you running any programs that you want people to know about or join in?
For women, I do run multiple group programs, and they start in June, July.
Oh, it's a perfect time.
Yeah. So yeah, like the best thing would be to book a call with me so we can discuss your individual situation and what is happening for you. But like my programs are all about feminine energy and claiming your feminine power back. It's all about your relationship with yourself and how you can step into your feminine power. Be that, nurturing, soft woman without feeling weak, because like this is something that is super important. Another thing that we feel weak when we allow ourselves to show our kindness. And it's like, it doesn't have to be that way. You can be kind and assertive. And it's, yeah. So yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful work. And I'm feeling very blessed to be able to work with so many women from around the world. And, like really, if you feel that something is happening like in your life right now, that you're experiencing challenge, overwhelm, or anxiety, please reach out. If it's not me, find somebody that actually will, be able to help you to move through these challenging times.
Genuine of you. It's very genuine of you. I like that. I say that too, and when people say that, it's like I like. You can always tell somebody when somebody's being genuine. If it's not me, then find somebody else. That's from the heart. From the heart.
Mm,
I love it. Eugina,
especially.
you've given me a lot of light bulb moments. Please share
Mhm.
the sheet. We can put that up, or if you have a link to that, what
Yes.
to ask before and after sex, aftercare. Like nobody's ever said that before. So there have been
Mhm.
multiple light bulb moments here. But guys, a lot of information, a lot of juicy things, orgasm a day. Like you
Mm.
feel free to have pleasure. Like, it's just at the tip of your fingers, literally.
Boom.
I know, it's like literally at the tip of
Right
your fingers.
here.
It literally speaking. Literally speaking. So Eugene, it's been such a pleasure. I mean, it's like now what, 4, 5 in the morning your time now?
Yeah. It's coming up to 6. But hey, listen, it's been worth
Oh,
every moment,
wow. Okay. I'm going to share the hell out of this. I hope are you going to go to bed now or start your morning?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to bed and chill for a little longer, but
Yeah.
that's if I can sleep right now, because this has been like super
It's
exciting,
high.
so I feel like, yeah, exactly.
We might do a part two because this is good, and I will message you about some things. There's there's some interesting things that have cropped up, but we will end up speaking for hours. So, from my heart to yours, thank you so much
Mm,
for coming on at 3 in the morning. Like, I mean,
mm,
I love you for that. That's absolutely, I really deeply appreciate that. And I will connect with you soon. I'm going to say have a lovely morning and the rest of your day. And to
Thank
those listening, thank you for joining in. Please connect with Eugina. She is obviously a world of knowledge when it comes to sex and sexual health and pleasure. So reach out to her and connect with her, join her Facebook group. And I will talk with you guys all later. Take care, everyone.
mm.
Bye.
Thanks so much.
You're
Bye.
welcome.